everyone, welcome back to my channel, Everlynn's Books and Tea. Today's video I'm super excited about because we're going to be starting on my monthly reading game challenge, where each month I kind of choose a reading game to play, and each month we'll have a different theme. Like September we did Gilmore Girls, last month in October we did Tales of Twilight, where we read like horror books and dark academia and cozy Halloween books. And this month is going to be our cozy reading game because, you know, it's November, it's definitely fall, and what better books to read in fall than cozy books. I am super excited to start this today because for the last week I've been reading a lot of my TBR books, and they've all been like mystery books that have not been like cozy mystery. I read the Thursday Murder Club, which is kind of cozy. And then I just finished Casino Royale, which is definitely not cozy. And I just started on Bad Blood, which is not really a cozy book either. So I'm excited to get some like good cozy books to read this week. So this is all the different books that are going to be potential reads for this game. This first section is going to be cozy fantasy. Some of these are on my TBR as well, which is great, like Wicked Wisteria and A Study in Drowning. Next up, we have our cozy mystery series. Well, I say series. They're cozy mystery books, which most of them happen to come in series. But you have things like cozy mysteries having to do with cooking, cozy mysteries having to do with like ghosts and tea mysteries, like all these different kinds. So I'm excited about that. Then last but not least, we have our cozy romance books. So a lot of these are going to be set in the fall time, which is obviously perfect for the season. So these were all handpicked by me, so I'm excited to read each and every one of them on here. So I don't really care which book I end up with because I'm going to be happy with the choice. All right, so how this game is going to work is we have our game board here. And just like in all my other games, these are the potential spots that we'll add tokens to. And we'll just kind of move around the board until we get to the end and call the game complete. So these are the tokens that we'll add to the game. The first one is the cover jar token. So if we land on this token, we're going to treat it the same as we did our Tales of Twilight game, where we'll draw 7 covers, book covers, and we will roll to see how we're going to sort them. It could be by title, it could be by author, and then we'll roll again, and whichever number we get, we'll read the corresponding book. So sounds confusing, but pretty easy in reality. You'll get it if we land on this at any time. So that's our first option. Our second token is pick a prompt token. So I have a jar of 25 prompts, and if we land on that, we will just pull a prompt and choose a book that corresponds to the prompt. All the prompts have to do with either the book cover or the book title. Then we have our variety jar token. If we land on this, we will choose a prompt out of the variety jar, and these prompts have to do with either author's name, page numbers, things like that. So very kind of concrete things. And then last but not least, we have our mystery spot. If we land on this, there are like 4 different things we could do, such as moving back, moving forward, skipping, things like that keep the game interesting. So that is the game. We will roll a dice to get around the board and then follow whatever token that we land on. So not too difficult. I'm super excited to do this and see what books we end up reading for this reading game. So first things we have to do is let me pull up the game board. We will get our tokens onto the game board in random order, and then we will do our first roll and choose our first book. All right, I have all the tokens in my hand here. I'm going to quickly put them on the board, and then we'll see what the board looks like at the end. All right, there we have the board. It's a pretty good mismatch of all the different tokens. The only thing that really stands out is that 2 of our 4 mystery spots are right at the beginning, and the other 2 are right at the end. But that could be good or bad, so we'll have to find out. So all that's left is to roll the dice and do our first move. All right, here's our pumpkin token. All right, let's see what we get for our first roll. A 1. Wonderful. Mystery spot. Since we landed on a mystery spot, we have to roll a 6-sided die to see what we have to do. I've put up here on the screen what each number on the 6-sided die stands for. So here we go. We got a 6. All right, so 6 is a free choice, and what that means is we are going to choose one of our jars, which will either be cozy mystery, cozy fantasy, or cozy romance. We'll pull 5 books out of it, and I get to choose one of the 5 books to read. So we're starting this game off super strong with a 1, just moving our way along this board quickly. We landed on Mystery Spot and unfortunately did not get to skip or move forward, but what we did end up getting was free choice. So I decided to go with the cozy fantasy genre for 2 reasons. 1, I'm kind of in the mood for a fantasy after reading a bunch of mysteries recently. And 2, a lot of my TBR books are on the cozy fantasy side. So I'm hoping to get one of those so I can knock off a book in the game and a book on my TBR, but we'll see. So what we're going to do is choose 5 books out of this cute little mug, and then we'll choose one of those 5 books to read. So hopefully one of these 5s, there's only 30 books in here. Hopefully one of the 5 will be one of the TBR books. So we'll see. All right, I'm going to pick them, then we'll open them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and last but not least, 5. All right, we'll put the mug over here so you don't think I'm cheating. All right, let's see what we get. All right, here's our first option, and it is Sorcery and Small Magics. So this is a good one. I actually just got this book in, I think it was a Fairy Loot bot. I cannot talk today. Fairy Loot box. So that's our first option. Our second option is going to be A Cup of Tea by Casey Blair. Our third option is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. This is kind of funny because I just finished recording my upcoming new releases I'm excited about, and the third Emily Wilde's book was on there, and I was mentioning how I had yet to read the second, but that may, not be true when that video goes up if I choose this one, which is definitely going to be up there. All right, fourth option is Forged by Magic. And then last but not least, we have our fifth option, which is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. Unfortunately, none of these are on my TBR. All right, if the background is a little bit off, a little bit different, I had to reset my camera. So now it's time to actually make a decision on which of these 5 books I am going to read. So I'll put all 5 options up here, and let's kind of go through them and see which one is the best option. So first off, I did go through and look at all the pages, how many pages there are, and I decided to eliminate the books that were over 400 pages because I really don't want to start off with reading a book that long, especially on the first roll when we only got a 1. Who knows how many more books we are going to be reading in this reading game challenge. So the 2 books that got eliminated off of that are Sorcery and Small Magic is the first book eliminated. It does have such an interesting summary though. So I'm definitely going to get around to reading it at some point, maybe later on in this game, but definitely don't want to start my first book off with a book this long. And the other one to get eliminated is A Cup of Tea by Casey Blair. And that's because that one's also 400 pages, though also may read this at some point. I don't own it at the moment, but anything surrounding tea is definitely a book that I'm interested in. So that leaves us with these 3. Now, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherland. Like I said, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies was one of the best books I have read this year so far. But I did just read the summary for the Otherlands, and it takes place mostly in the Austrian Alps, which sounds like a very wintry setting. And I kind of want to push this book off into December, January, when it's colder outside, when it feels like more wintry than it does currently. Like right now we're in the 50s, which is colder. It's definitely fall weather, but not quite in the winter weather. So since I have the option of pushing this book off at this moment in time, I'm also going to eliminate that one. So that leaves us with 2 books to choose from. We have Forged by Magic by Jenna Wolfhart and A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by Ting. I'm like combining names again. T. Kingfisher. So let's just look at the summaries of these 2 books real quick. See which one kind of grabs my attention. All right, so A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking is a YA book. It also, I think, won the Locus Award, either won it or was nominated by it. And for those who have watched my other videos, that's one of my goals, is to read books that have been nominated or won the Locus, Nebula, or Hugo Awards. So that would also help me knock off those books if I choose this one. So this book follows 14-year-old Mona in a world of magic, and the only magic she's able to control is that affects her bread. She spends her days working in her aunt's bakery making gingerbread man, but then one day her life is turned upside down when a dead body is found in the bakery. So that's our first option. Our other option is Forged by Magic. So this book follows a half-orc named Daela, and she's one of the few half-orcs left in the world, and she knows she's never really going to be free, never going to find her happy ever after. But then the Emperor ends up offering her a deal. She can earn her freedom if she journeys to the mysterious Isles of Fable and tracks down wielders of outlaw dragon magic. So those are our 2 options. I think out of these 2, I'm going to go with A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher for 2 reasons. One, it is a Locus Award. Was it Locus? I think it was Locus Award winner. So that's going to help me slowly narrow that list down. And 2, it's not part of a series. I have so many series going on. I don't really want to start another one unless, this game prompts me to. And also it's a YA novel, so it should be a quicker read. So that is the book we are going to go with first. A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. I'm excited about this. I've heard the name of the book. I haven't really heard whether people like it or not, but I know T. Kingfisher is a pretty popular author, so I'm hoping that I am going to like this book. So I will check back in when I hopefully get halfway through it. It's like 5:30 right now on a Saturday. I just finished watching my Premier League team play. Thankfully, they won. And I'm about to watch my college football team play next. So I'm going to try to get some reading done in between these 2 games. I have about 3 hours. So hopefully I can get a good chunk of this book done. But most likely I will check back in with you tomorrow and let you know how this book is going. I'll see you guys soon. All right, I am back, and I am now about halfway through A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. We're now on the following day. It's Sunday at around noon, so about lunchtime. And I'm just happy I made it halfway through the book by this time of day. So this book follows 14-year-old Mona. It's actually told from her point of view. It's a first-person point of view. And while sometimes I don't enjoy the first-person point of views, this book is actually written pretty well. So it hasn't really bugged me at all, which is great. So anyway, Mona is a baker who has this magical ability to infuse her doughs with magic. And she can do things like make gingerbread man dance, or, when she bakes the bread in the oven, she can tell the bread not to burn. When the bread comes out of the oven, she can either make sure that it's very fluffy or stale. So that's kind of like her magical abilities, and that's the only thing she can use her magic on is dough. So the world that this book is set in, there are many people who have magical abilities, from simple things like Mona all the way up to being what are called like war wizards that can control weather, things like that. And as in a lot of books, some people are wary of these people with magic, some people are okay with them. And in the particular city that Mona lives in, the wizards have the same rights as everybody else in the city, which is not the same in some of the other city-states. So anyway, let's get to the plot of the book, which is more understandable now that I'm 50% of the way through the book. So the book starts out with Mona finding a dead girl in the bakery that she works at, a bakery that's owned by her aunt. And she lets her aunt know, because, that's not a normal finding when you go to open up a bakery in the morning, is a dead girl. and they end up calling the police. Mona gets questioned, and the story kind of takes off from there. This kind of set off a whole cascade of events. So what Mona comes to realize is that people with magic are being killed in the city, and no one knows why, no one knows who's doing it, but she has magic, so she's worried that she's going to become one of them. So she ends up having to protect her life, and she has two accomplices to do this with. The first is a young boy that she ends up meeting during the fiasco of the dead body, and she has a little gingerbread man that she baked and animated that sits on her shoulder and goes with her wherever she goes. So at this point, this little group has to figure out who is trying to kill magic people so that, Mona doesn't get killed and that the rest of the city's magic population is kept safe. So she has to figure out who she can trust, who's not trustworthy, and kind of go from there. So far, I am definitely enjoying the book. It's definitely a cozy fantasy book. I would definitely put it into that genre. There are some high stakes in the book, but the way that the author writes them, there's a lot of lightheartedness, I guess, in the book, especially with the characters. Like I said before, did I say before? I don't know. This is the second time I recorded this. Anyway, it's told from Mona's point of view, and between her and the boy that she's kind of joined up with, there's a lot of lighthearted moments between the two as they are, running for their lives or getting themselves into strange situations. And then when you add the gingerbread man, who kind of takes on a personality of its own, there's a whole nother side of comedic relief through that. So with that, it makes it an enjoyable read. It is a little bit slow in parts, so some here and there it's a little hard to continue to pay attention. But now that I'm kind of into the main plot of the book, it's been a lot easier to stick with it. So I'm hopeful to be able to finish this book today because I really want to get to my second roll, considering the first roll was only a 1, which means we have a very long way to get around the board, and I'm hoping I don't end up needing to read like 18 books to complete this game. So fingers crossed, we'll see. So I will be back with you later today once I have finished this book, and I'll let you know my final thoughts on it, and then we'll go ahead and do our second roll of the game. So I'll see you guys soon. All right, I am back. We are now in the evening of the same day. I changed sweatshirts, but we are still on Sunday, and it is, I think about, 7:30 at night. So I have now completed A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher, and I will say the second half of the book I enjoy so much more than the first half. Once we got into the true action of the book, I definitely couldn't put it down, and I finished the last half a lot quicker than I got through that first half, which is great. I would give this book probably a 4 out of 5. I felt that it was a super unique book, and the title kind of describes what happens at the end, where Mona has to use her bakery magic to defend some things, and definitely not something you read about too often, where bakery is used to defend people from danger. So that was kind of a unique spin. Definitely some good imagination on the author's part of it. And just some of the commentary that the main character Mona had throughout the book was also very entertaining, just kind of her one-liners. I had to, laugh a couple of times at some of the things that she was saying and some of the things that she was thinking. And yeah, I think that's it. Like I said, I enjoyed the characters. I thought the plot was super interesting, especially in that second half of the book. And I'm super happy that I had a chance to read it. But now we must go on to our next roll because, we only rolled a 1 and we need to get around this board in a decent amount of time. So I'm hoping that I'll get either a cozy romance or a cozy mystery on the second spin because I kind of want to step away from the fantasy genre for the next book and kind of mix it up a little bit. So we'll see what the board has to show us, to give us, and I guess we'll go from there. So let's bring up the game board and do our second roll of the game. All right, so back to our game board. We're ready for roll 2. We are still on the first space on the board, so we have a good ways to go. So we really need a high number so that we can move forward. So I'm thinking anything above 5 would be great, 5 or above. So let's see what we get for this second roll. A 2. That is definitely not 5 or above. but we ended up on cover jar. So the cover jar spot works the same as it did in my Tales of Twilight game I played last month. So what we are going to do is choose one of the 3 jars or mugs that have the cover of the books in them. We'll choose 7 covers, we'll rearrange them, and then we'll roll a dice, and whatever dice that is will be the cover we choose, or the book we choose. So first we have to decide which mug we are going to be drawing from. We have our Cozy Mystery, Cozy Fantasy, and Cozy Romance. So let's roll a 6-sided die and see what we get. I will put which each number corresponds with up on one of the sides. And here we go. Of course, now we get a 5. So 5 is Cozy Romance, which is perfect. I was kind of hoping for either a Cozy Romance or a Cozy Mystery, just to kind of get something different than fantasy. And I haven't read any romance books lately, so this roll was perfect. All right, so next up we have to choose our 7 books from the Cozy Romance mug. So here we go. I'll just put the mug here. Yep. All right. So book number 1, the option will be Pumpkin Spice and Not So Nice. Option 2, oops, got 2 there. Option 2 is Mr. October. So definitely getting some of those fall vibes, even though we are November. Option 3 is Role Playing, which is actually on my 24 books reading 24, so that wouldn't be too bad. Option 4 is See You Next Fall. Option 5, keep getting 2 of them. Option 5 is The Love Hypothesis. Option 6 is Edenbrook. And last but not least, we have option 7. And that book is going to be A Pumpkin and a Patch. Alright, so not too bad of options. I wouldn't mind reading The Love Hypothesis. I've heard a lot about it from other people who have read it, and most seem to really enjoy it. So that would be a good option. Again, role playing's on my 24 books reading 24. And then Pumpkin Spice and Not So Nice also sounds kind of like a great one because it sounds really into the fall. So what we are going to do next is take our 8-sided die and roll it. And this will tell us how we are going to line up the books. So I'll put the options again up here on one of the 2 sides of the screen. And let's see our book sorting option for roll number 2. And of course now we get an 8. So an 8 means I get to sort the books however I like, depending on what number I think we are going to get when we roll the dice again. I have a feeling with the way my luck is going that we'll roll another high number, so I'm going to put those books to the right. So keep Love Hypothesis there. I'll put Role Playing. Pumpkin Spice, Not So Nice. I'm going to put Edenbrook as a 1 because that's the book I'm least excited to read. And then a Pumpkin and a Patch right in the middle. And that lineup looks good to me. So now comes the moment of truth where we are going to roll the 8-sided die one more time. And whatever number we land on, that will be the book that we choose. And if we get an 8, that means I get to choose the book. So here we go. A6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got Role Playing, which I'm super excited about because this is going to knock off another book on my 24 books to read in 24 list. I don't even know what I can say at this point. We rolled a 2. We barely have made any progress on this board and we're already on to our second book. I don't understand how this happens every time I play one of these short games. And the best part is when I was rolling to figure out what book we were going to read, we were getting all high numbers. We had an 8, a 6, and of course that could not happen when we rolled to move our little pumpkin around the board. But that's just the way the luck is rolling right now, which is fine. The good thing is not only did we get a cozy romance book, we also got a book that just happened to be on my 24 books to read in 24. So that was a win in that situation. So Role Playing is by Kathy Yardley. It's a grumpy sunshine romance that follows Maggie, who's a 48-year-old hermit, doesn't really socialize much until she makes this deal with her son, college age son, that if he goes out and socializes more, she'll do the same thing. So she ends up joining this online guild, and she calls herself the Bog Witch. And there she meets a friendly healer named Otter. So Otter's real name is Aiden. He's a 50-year-old who has a lot of family drama going on. He's taking care of his aging mother, and his brother happens to be going out with his ex-fiance. So, a little bit of drama there. So anyway, to confuse the plot even more, Maggie thinks Aiden's a college student, and Aiden thinks Maggie is a 80-year-old. But when they finally meet face to face, they end up growing closer, but the baggage that Maggie carries from her past relationship and the complicated past that Aiden has may make it so that this relationship doesn't work out. So that's kind of the premise of the book. Will they be able to make this work out in real life, or will it stay a virtual relationship? We'll have to read it to find out. Luckily, it is on the shorter side. It's like 330 some pages, so hopefully it'll be a quick, easy read. And yeah, I think that's all I got to say about it for now until I get into it. I'll check in with you when I'm about halfway through the book, which will hopefully be tomorrow morning at some point. Because I really want to get to that third role tomorrow so I can get through this board and get through this game. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully this will be another quick read, and I'll see you guys when I'm halfway through the book. So hopefully I'll see you guys soon. All right, we are on a brand new day. We actually jumped ahead several days, and it is currently Tuesday. And I have just finished Role Playing by Kathy Yardley. I actually never gave my update on this book halfway through. Part of that reason is because this morning when I got up, I was about 50% of the way through the book. And before I got on camera to talk to you guys, I, wanted to have my morning cup of tea. And before I knew it, I thought I would only read like another 10% of the book. And before I knew it, I was at the end of the book. So here we are, talking now as I have completed the book. I really enjoyed this book. I would probably give it a 4.25 out of 5. So this book follows Aiden and Maggie, who are kind of these introverted characters. They're in their late 40s. I think Aiden is 50. And the two of them have had some difficult relationships in the past and have kind of kept to themselves for like years and years. What they both do enjoy though is online gaming. So the way that they ended up meeting was through a online gaming guild, which I thought was a fun way for them to meet, especially, in society, you don't expect late 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds playing online games, even though that's becoming obviously more and more popular because that generation has grown up in the gaming world. Anyway, I thought that was a fun introduction for the characters. And the other interesting thing is that they knew that they lived in the same town because Maggie was introduced to this online gaming guild through the mother of her son. No, not the mother of her son. That would be her. Through the mother of her son's friend. And she, I think, had mentioned that the guy was taking had moved here, was taking some college classes, helping out his mom. And she thought that he was in his 20s. And then the way Aiden heard about Maggie was through his mother, who is in her 80s. And so he thought that she was also in her 80s. And of course, online chat, you don't really get around to necessarily talking about your age. So they thought about this, for a good while until they finally ended up meeting face to face and realized that they were the same age. So that was kind of a fun little twist, a fun little introduction. The other issue, like I said, was they both had really complicated relationships in the past. Maggie divorced her husband like 4 or 5 years ago and had kind of like a really tumultuous relationship with him. And Aiden ended up almost getting married, and then the wedding got called off, and his ex-fiance actually ended up marrying his son. Oh my god. His brother. There we go. And now Aiden's back in town helping out his mother, who is aging. I think his mother's actually in her late 70s. And Maggie's living in an empty house because her son has gone off to college. So yeah, so that's kind of the storyline. It's a very slow burn romance, but I liked how it kind of laid itself out. It was nice kind of reading a different type of romance where the characters were a little bit older. You could say probably a little bit more mature because they've kind of been through these types of relationships in the past. The one issue I had with the book is that the author kept mentioning that Aiden and his ex-fiance broke up, but never really said why. It was like a secret throughout the book. It would be mentioned from Aiden's point of view, but very vaguely, and it wasn't until the end that you found out really why the two of them broke up. And I don't know, I can kind of see why the author did it because of the reason that the two of them broke up, but I also thought it would have been maybe a little bit more interesting to know it from Aiden's perspective, but obviously Maggie would not find out till the end of the book, and it makes a lot of sense what I'm talking about if you read the book, but otherwise this may not. But that was the one thing that was kind of bothersome because this book was told from two points of view, Aiden and Maggie, and when it was told from Aiden's point of view, knowing that he had a secret that you as a reader did not know about, that stuff is kind of annoying to me, because I feel like when you're reading from a person's point of view, you should know whatever that person knows, but that could be just me. I don't know. But that was really the only issue I had with it. I enjoyed both characters. I thought they were written well. I thought they both had personalities, and I thought the author stuck with those personalities throughout the book well, in that you kind of knew what to expect from each character and the different situations that they were placed in. So like I said, I gave it a 4.25 out of 5. I definitely really enjoyed it. It is a slow burning romance, so if that's not the type of romance that you enjoy reading, you may not enjoy this one. When I looked through the Goodreads comments, that was probably the most common complaint, was that it was a little too slow, which is fine. But I definitely really enjoyed it. It was definitely kind of like a cozy romance with it being such a slow burning romance, and you kind of got to see the friendship evolve before the romantic part really started. So anyway, that's that book. So now we got to move on to our next roll, which will be our third book in the game. And we're only 3 spaces into the game board, so hopefully we can get a bigger roll, because otherwise we're going to be playing this game the entire month. So we'll see what happens. So let's pull up the game board and do our third roll. All right, we are now on to our third roll. So hopefully we will get a nice high number on this roll. I had a nice little chat with the dice. Hopefully it will listen, because we really need like a 7 or 8 to make it through this board. So let's see what we get for our third roll of this game. Another 2. We're doing so well here. All right, so this time we landed on pick a prompt. So we are going to grab our prompt jar and choose a prompt. All right, so this is our prompt jar, and here are 25 prompts that have to do with either the cover of a book or the title of a book. So let's draw one out, and then we'll see which books match it. Now, here we go. All right, we're going to go with this one here. All right, so our prompt for roll number 3 is baked goods on the cover. All right, here are all of the covers of the books that are on the TBR for this game. So we just need to look through them, see which choices we have for baked goods on the cover, and then go from there. Love, Sugar, Magic, A Dash of Trouble has baked goods. It has these little gingerbread or some sort of cookie on here, so we could go with this one. The quiche of death has a quiche on it. That's technically a baked good, so that would be an option. The Secret Book and Scone Society, these are both cozy mysteries, obviously, would be an option as well. You can see some baked goods right here. And then this one, Cinnamon and Spice Conundrum, has a baked good on it that she is holding. And I think those are mostly our options. So once again, we have A Dash of Trouble, which is cozy fantasy. We have The Secret Book and Scone Society, The Quiche of Death, and Cinnamon and Spice Conundrum. So out of these, I actually know which one I'm going to go with. That is A Dash of Trouble. And the reason why we're going with this one is it happens to also be on my November TBR. So we can knock out 2 birds with 1 stone, get through another book on our cozy reading game, and check off a book from our TBR. So this is perfect. So A Dash of Trouble will be the book that we will be reading next. All right, another 2. I don't even know at this point. It is what it is. We're on our 3rd book. We are not even halfway through the board yet. Hopefully our next 2 rolls will be a lot better because I'm counting on 2 big rolls so that we can get through this game board in 2 rolls. So the prompt that we got was the baked goods on the cover prompt. And the book I chose was Love, Sugar, Magic, A Dash of Trouble by Anna Mariano. And like I said, the reason I ended up going with this book is that it is on my November TBR. So this will be a great way to continue reading my TBR while I'm playing this game. So I'm very excited that this was an option. I will forgive the game board for only giving me a 2. So this is a middle grade book, which I'm super excited about. You can see that the writing is very big. It's definitely on the larger side, so it should hopefully be a quicker read as well. It's also not super long. It's a little over 300 pages, so this could be like read in a day, I feel. Anyway, this book follows Leonora, who lives in Rose Hill, Texas, and her family owns a bakery. And not only do they bake, baked goods, they also use magic in their baked goods as well. This is becoming a theme for this reading game. We had A Wizard Guide to the Defense of Baking. Now we have A Dash of Trouble. I think in my last reading game, we had Magic Sweet, Magic Bitter, which also dealt with magic and baked goods. So apparently I really enjoyed these books. Anyway, the way Leo finds out that her mother, aunt, and 4 older sisters are witches of Mexican ancestry is that she ended up sneaking out of school and going to the bakery because she wanted to take part in the baking for the annual Dia de los Muertos festival. So after this, Leo knows that she also must have a magical ability as well, and this makes her more determined than ever to join her family's business, even if she can't let her mom and sister know that she knows that they are witches of Mexican ancestry. But when her best friend Caroline has a problem that needs solving, Leo feels like this is the perfect time to test out her craft, and it's just one little spell after all. What could go wrong? So this sounds like it'll be a fun little fantasy book, and I'm excited to read it. So yeah, I'll check back in once I'm halfway through and let you guys know what I am thinking about this. I'm super excited. It's, what time is it? It's like 11 o'clock, 11:30 right now. So I'll probably read this through lunchtime and then do a couple of errands. And hopefully by the end of the day, I will be also back and letting you know that I have completed this book and it's time to go on to our next roll. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. All right, it's still Tuesday. It's about 7:30 at night, and I have completed A Dash of Trouble by Anna Mariano, which is the first book in her Love, Sugar, Magic series that currently is a trilogy, with the last book published in 2020. So I don't know if there's any plans to write any more, if it's meant to be a trilogy. It kind of seems that way. Anyway, I had a lot of fun with this book. So like I said before, this is a middle grade book, so I went into it not really expecting a lot, just to have some fun with reading it, and that's what happened. I definitely had some fun reading the book. I enjoyed the plot line, I enjoyed the characters, and it was a quick, fun read. So like I said before, this book follows Leonora, who goes by Leo. I think she's in 6th grade, and the youngest of 5 daughters. And she comes to realize one day that her family have been hiding a big secret from her, and that is that all the females in her family are actually witches of Mexican descent known as brujas. And she finds this by kind of sneaking around so she can't let the rest of her family know, or else they know that she was kind of hiding and sneaking around. So her family's magic is connected to baking, so they are able to bake magical recipes that, can cause different things. And she comes to realize that as a daughter of this family, that she most likely has that ability as well. And instead of asking her mom about it, talking to her mom about it, her being a preteen decides that the best way to do things is to try some magic on her own. So of course one thing leads to another, and she just keeps getting herself deeper and deeper into trouble, and that's kind of the basis of the book. So it's definitely a fun read. The whole book is written from Leo's standpoint, and I felt that her reasonings for the things that she did were very well thought out in the book. And I can see preteens doing some of the things that she did because they just want to figure out things on their own at that point in life and not have to ask their parents, especially if they know asking their parents is going to cause them to get into trouble. So like I said, it was definitely a fun book. I've been reading a lot of books involving magic and baked goods. This was the 3rd one I've read in the last couple of weeks, starting off with Magic Sweet, Magic Bitter, which the main character was able to bake feelings into her baked goods. Then we read, oh my god, I'm blanking on the name. Oh, Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, where the main character in that one was able to get her baked goods to kind of do things. And then this one, where the main characters are able to bake recipes that cause magical things to happen. So overall, this has been a fun little trend I've been reading on, so I've definitely enjoyed it. I don't really rate middle grade books because I'm not obviously the audience that they are written for, but I will say I did enjoy this one. I'll probably go on and read the rest of the series because they're kind of good palate cleansing books, or they're good books when you just don't want to really have to focus and, just have a good time just reading a fun, quick fantasy. So that is that. And this book is now off my November TBR as well, so yay. So now we gotta go on to our 4th roll and see what we get on this roll. Hopefully something bigger than a 2, because we have not moved anywhere on this board yet. So let's bring up the game board, see what we get. All right, we are back for our 4th roll now, which is a little crazy because we are literally only on space 5. But that's the way the game is going. So I don't really have much else to say at this point. Let's just go ahead and roll the dice, see what we get. A 1. A 1. Oh my gosh. All right, moving right along with a 1. So this time we landed on the cover jar. All right, so we've already did this once before, not too long ago. So we are going to roll our 6-sided die that will tell us whether we'll be reading mystery, fantasy, or romance book. I'll put what the numbers stand for up on screen. And we got a 4. So 4 is a cozy mystery, which is great because that's the one genre we haven't read from yet. So, looking on the bright side of things, at least we'll be reading a cozy mystery. All right, so our mystery jar is over here. So let's just start. Let me move this. All right, so let's start drawing our 7 potential books from this jar. Hopefully we get a really short one because that is what we need at this point. I will say there's one book in here I've actually already read, and if I happen to get that one, I'm going to count it and move on to the next roll. I'll let you know what that book is when if we see it. So first up we have Death in Castle Dark. Our second option will be Hooked on Murder. Most of these are book 1 in a series of books. Got 2 there. All right, our third option is going to be I can't even read this one. The Perfectly Proper Paranormal Museum. Next up, we have Night of the Living Deed. All right, moving on to our fifth option. We get The Secret Book and Scone Society. Our sixth option is Death by Darjeeling. And last but not least, we've got The Ghost and Mrs. McClure. So those are our 7 options, none of which I've read, of course. Not really quite sure which of these 7 I would like. I think at this point the shortest one would be great. But let's go ahead and roll our 8-sided die that will tell us how we are sorting these books. Again, I'll put what each number corresponds to on the screen. Let's see what we get. A 2. Alright, so a 2 stands for sorting by author's first name. Perfect. Alright, we got a Betty, a Veronica, Kirsten, EJ, Ellery, Laura, Alice, and then Veronica. All right. Perfect. Move these all down. All right, so we got Alice, Betty, E.L., Ellery, Kirsten, Laura, and Veronica. Those all seem to be in the right order. So here we go. We will roll the die. If I get an 8, I get to choose the book. Otherwise, the number will correspond to what book we are going to read. And it's a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we will be reading Death by Darjeeling. I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce that. But that will be our 4th book that we'll be reading for this game. Yay, we rolled a 1. I don't know what is going on with this game. I have never rolled so many low numbers in a row. We've gotten several 1s and several 2s and nothing higher than that, like on an 8-sided dice. This is getting kind of crazy. But either way, that is what we rolled, so that's what we have to go with. And this time we're getting to read a cozy mystery though, so that's the first time that we have got a book in that genre. And the book that we got, left over here. The book that we got is Death by Darjeeling by Laura Childs. All right, so Death by Darjeeling, and Darjeeling is a type of tea. The tea, I looked this up. I'm a big tea person, but I don't really know the history of tea. So Darjeeling is actually from a town called Darjeeling, which is in the foothills of the Himalayas in West Bengal, India. And the town is known for this world-famous black tea. The tea itself is known for its unique flavor and aroma, and is often called the champagne of tea. It has a golden or bronze color and tastes sweeter and less bitter than any other black tea. So that is what Darjeeling tea is. Now, as far as the book goes, first off, this is book 1 in the author's A Tea Shop Mystery series. Second off, this book only has 243 pages in it, so at least we have that going for us. It's a super short book, so hopefully it'll be a super quick read. The book itself starts off at an annual historic home garden party where Theodosia, who's the main character, is a event caterer and is serving her steaming tea and blackberry scones when a esteemed guest ends up being found dead, his hands clutching an empty teacup. So now all eyes are on Theo, who is now trying to desperately save her reputation and track down the real killer before someone else ends up taking their last sip. So that's kind of the synopsis of the book. It sounds like exactly what a cozy mystery is. So we'll see how it is. It was published back in 2001, so it's been around obviously for a while now. But I'm excited to get to it. Like I love tea. I love a cozy mystery. So hopefully the combination of the two will make for a good book. I will probably come back, since the book is so short, at once I finished it rather than in the middle, especially because we keep getting all these low rolls. We may end up having like 10 books on this reading game, and otherwise this video is going to be like 2 hours long. So I will come back at the end and let you know what I thought of the book, and hopefully I will see you guys by tomorrow morning at the latest. So that will mean that the book is completed. So I will see you guys hopefully very soon. So Death in Darjeeling has been completed. It was actually completed a couple of days ago, but this is the first time I have gotten around to being able to get on camera for this. So we are going to talk about this book now. So again, this was Death in Darjeeling by Laura Childs, and it's the first book in her A Tea Shop Mystery series, which is a very long series. I realized when I looked it up, it is now it's about to be 29 books long. And the 29th book comes out, I believe, next year in 2025. So I can't say that this is one of my most favorite cozy mystery books that I have ever read. It definitely was not that. Not to say that it was bad, but it just wasn't the type of cozy mystery that I look for when I'm reading these type of stories. I like to have a little bit more humor, a little bit more interaction between characters, and I really kind of expect to get to know the characters a little bit better than I did in this story. So the main character is Theodosia. I think she goes by Theo. It's been a couple days since I read it. And she used to be a kind of high-end advertiser who worked in this big, fast-paced company, and then eventually felt like she had enough of that, or she got fired, I can't really remember which, and ended up out of that career field, and used her kind of money that she has saved to buy this tea shop in Georgia. Savannah, Georgia? Pretty sure Savannah, Georgia. And since then, that is where she has been working, making tea, having tea times, and honestly, it felt like the perfect job. I would love to own a tea shop and spend my day brewing teas and baking little, cakes and anything else you have with tea time, but my baking skills aren't quite up to par to be able to do that. Not that they're bad, they're just not tea shop excellence. Anyway, so as owner of this tea shop, Theodosia is always looking for different ways that she can kind of make money, like different ideas. And one of the things that Savannah does in fall, is have this kind of like, it may have been summer, this ghost hunting walk. And at the end of the walk, they end up at this manor, and there Theodosia's business kind of hosts a tea party. And of course, someone ends up dying at that tea party after drinking Theodosia's tea. And now Theodosia is the prime suspect for this person's murder. So it kind of starts out like any cozy mystery where the main character is now suspected of murder, and now she needs to clear her name. So anyway, she ends up doing this investigation outside the police force and gathers a list of suspects and interviews them until she figures out who has done the murder. I actually guessed who the murder was, I think about halfway through the book. And my big issue with this book is I felt like I didn't really get to know any of the characters, including the main character, Theo. I felt like I never really got to know her personality. It was just her kind of stating facts and trying to find this murderer, and not really her interacting a lot with the other characters outside, these brief instances that took place inside the tea shop. I did love the tea shop parts. I thought those were kind of like fun and cozy. And the one character that worked inside the tea shop, he was kind of like an older gentleman, and has had a long affinity of tea and knows everything about it. So he's the one that makes up the tea blends that the shop sells. So he seems to be the character that kind of has the most personality written into him. He's the only one I could kind of imagine what he would be like in real life. And that was kind of the downside of this book. It was hard to stick to it because it was hard to connect to pretty much all the characters, even that main character. So that was Death by Darjeeling by Laura Childs. I will probably try to read a couple more books in the series just to see how these characters develop, if I feel more connected to them as I continue to read the series, because I do like the idea of mysteries set around the tea shop. It just seems like a fun idea. And this may have been one of the very first books that she ever wrote. So we'll see. We'll check out a couple more of her books sometime in the future and see how I like them. And see if that's a series I'm going to commit to, as it is 29 books long and continuing since the last book has not even been published yet. So, yep, that is Death by Darjeeling. So I think that's all I have to say about that book. So let's move on to our next roll and bring up the game board. All right, we are back to the board again onto I believe we're on our 5th roll, even though we've only moved 6 spots on the game board. So it's a new day. Hopefully we will get a wonderful roll. All right, let's move that dice out of the way. Here's our 8-sided dice, and I am hoping for a very big number. 6. All right, we will take that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got cover jar once again. So let's go ahead and start rolling the dice and see what covers we will be choosing for our 5th roll of the game. All right, so first we'll roll the 6-sided die to see if we'll be reading fantasy, mystery, or romance. I'm kind of hoping for fantasy just because there are a lot of fantasy books on my TBR in that jar. But we'll have to see. So I'll put what each number corresponds to up here. And let's go ahead and roll. All right, we got a 2. And 2 is cozy fantasy. So perfect. For once the game is being nice. All right, our cozy fantasy covers are in this jar here. So we will go ahead and choose the 7 potential books for our 5th read. All right, so book number 1 is Minor Mage by T. Kingfisher. Book number 2 is Sorcery and Small Magics by Magadusi. Book number 3 will be The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love. Book number 4 is A Dark and Secret Magic. All right. Got 2 again there. Book number 5 is A Marvelous Light. Book number 6 is a book we already read, A Dash of Trouble. So let's choose a different one. The Dark Archives. And last but not least, book number 7. And it is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. All right, so none of these are on my TBR, of course, but there are some good choices on here. I've been wanting to read The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love, and The Dark Archive will move me forward in that series. I think it's like book 7 in the Invisible Library series out of 8, so I'm almost would be complete with that. All right, but let's go ahead and see how we are going to sort the books. Again, I'll put what each number stands for up on one of the corners, and let's see what we get. An 8, which means I sort the books. All right, we're just going to take some guesses here. All right, I have no rhyme or reason why I sorted this way, but that looks good for me. All right, so let's go ahead and roll this dice, and whatever number we get corresponds to what book we're going to read. Unless we get an 8, and then it is our choice. 4. So Minor Mage by T. Kingfisher. So this is actually a great choice because it is another short book. It's only like 176 pages. So yay. At least this roll seems to have worked well for us. All right, we finally rolled something bigger than a 2. Yay. I'm so happy that we finally did it. So this time we rolled a 6 and we landed on the cover jar. And we got to choose a book from the Cozy Fantasy jar, which is exciting. We've read one of those so far, and it was time to read another. And of course, we got a T. Kingfisher book again. And we'll be reading Minor Mage, which is wonderful for me because this is a novella. It's only like 194-ish pages long, so it should not take me very long to get through it. Plus, it's written at a middle grade level, it looks like. So that's even better. I think out of the books that we had to choose from for this cover jar, I think this was the best one to get. So Minor Mage follows a boy named Oliver who is a wizard with kind of very minor powers. He only knows a couple of spells, and that's about it. He has a armadillo that is his familiar that I thought was super cute, and in this book he is sent on a quest to bring back rain to his village. So that's all I really know about this book. So I'm going to get to reading it, and hopefully it won't take me too long, and I will be back to let you know what I think about it once I finished it. All right, so we have completed Minor Mage by T. Kingfisher. You can see the little armadillo on the cover. That's his familiar, which is super cute. And this was just a fun, adorable book to read. There wasn't much to it other than Oliver trying to get to this place where the cloud hunters live so that he can convince the clouds to come to his village to start the rain. And Oliver himself was a well-written character. You kind of got to know him, know his personality, and kind of watch him as he confronts the difficulties that he had on his path to the cloud hunters, and there was plenty of them for him. And I think he was like, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. So his first time out on his own, I think it may have been his first time even leaving his village. His armadillo was a super cute sidekick on this voyage and always kept Oliver, going on. He always had something snarky to say when Oliver was trying to transverse all of these different troubles he kept finding himself in. So yeah, I say this is a super cute, super adorable read. If you need something after you've read, some of those long epic fantasies and you just want a short, fun fantasy to get through in a pretty quick amount of time, this is definitely a cute book to read for that. Just another kind of unique fantasy magic book by T. Kingfisher. I felt that after I read her A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, and I feel that again after reading Minor Mage. So I think that's all I really got to say about this novella. Obviously it was short, so I can't really talk too much about its plot without giving the whole novella away. So let's move on to our next roll, which I think is our 6th roll of the game, if I am correct. Let's bring up the game board, and again, let's hope for some big numbers. All right, it is time for our 6th roll of the game, and what could potentially be the last roll as well, as we are only 7 spaces away from the finish line. So it is time to see if we are going to end this game with just having to read 5 books, or if we are going to add a 6th book to this cozy reading game. All right, let's get our 8-sided dice and see what we get. Let's think big numbers. A 3. All right, let's move our little pumpkin 3 spaces. 3. And it does look like we will be reading a 6th book on this reading challenge game. And this time we will be choosing it through Pick a Prompt, which is good because it gives me a chance to get one of my TBR books onto this game. So here is our prompt bucket that has all our prompts, which only include cover prompts and title prompts. So let's mix these up and see what prompt we'll be looking for on our cover. Okay, so here is the prompt. And it is a type of drink in the title. All right, here is all the book covers that we can choose from. So let's kind of go through and see what options we have. So they need to have a drink in the title. So the first one I see is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Obviously, this is a very popular book and it has lattes in the title, so that is definitely a drink. Now, technically, Death in Darjeeling is one too, but we already read that book. We have Tempest in the Tea Leaves. This is by Carrie Lee Townsend. I don't really know too much about this book other than it's a cozy mystery, but this would be an option as well. All right, I quickly looked at the page count for these two books as well, and they're both about 290 pages. One's like 294, one's 296, so not too much difference there. So, what I think I'm going to do, since we just finished a cozy fantasy, is switch back over to cozy mystery, and we'll go with Tempest in the Tea Leaves by Carrie Lee Townsend. And hopefully this will be the last book that we have to read for this game. Only time can tell. All right, we're back to rolling low numbers again. We just got a 3. We could have finished the game board on this roll, but no, we got a 3. This cozy game is definitely out to get me this month. But we ended up landing on Prompt Jar, and we were able to choose a cozy mystery book, which I'm excited about. Hopefully this one's a little bit stronger than Death by Darjeeling was. This book also has to do with tea, funnily enough, and it is called A Tempest in Tea Leaves. This book is by Carrie Lee Townsend. It's actually Tempest in the Tea Leaves, not by the tea leaves. I keep getting that one wrong whenever I say it or think it. Anyway, this book follows Sunny, who has these fortune teller skills that she used to predict other people's future. And she has decided it's time to kind of get away from her parents and move out of their house. She's in her 20s now, and to kind of learn what it's like to live on her own. So she ends up buying a house in Divinity, New York, and moving into her house, which is supposedly haunted, and set up her kind of fortune telling business. But on her very first read, she is reading the future of the town librarian using tea leaves. And what she sees at the bottom of that teacup does not bode well for the librarian. So that's kind of the synopsis of the book. It sounds like it could be a fun, entertaining book. So I'm hoping, like I said, that this one is a better cozy mystery read than Death by Darjeeling was. I'm hoping I get to know the characters a little bit better. But we'll find out. I'm going to go read it. This is another shorter book, so hopefully it won't take me too long to read. And I will come back and check in once I have completed this book. So I'll see you guys soon. I finished reading Tempest in the Tea Leaves, and it's actually snowing outside right now, which I cannot believe. We're not even at the end of November yet, and we're already getting snow outside. And enough snow that it's actually dusting the yard. It's not like lying in the streets or anything yet, so that's good. I don't think it's quite cold enough for that, but definitely getting some snow dust on the yard, which is crazy. We haven't even made it to Thanksgiving yet. And it is cold outside, don't get me wrong. It's like 36 degrees or something. But that's okay. I'm inside my house, and it just feels like the perfect day to read. Anyway, like I said, I finished Tempest in the Tea Leaves by Carrie Lee Townsend. This is the first book in her Sunny Meadows mystery series, and I absolutely loved this book. I loved reading this book. This was probably one of my favorite cozy mystery books I've read in a while. And yeah, I had so much fun reading this, I didn't want to put it down. So like I said, this book follows Sunny Meadows, who is this fortune teller who is actually able to read or get vibes on people's future. She doesn't always know what it means, but she knows enough that once whatever she predicts happens, she understands what kind of her vision, her vibe was when she did the reading. And she does lots of different readings depending on who the person is. She says that she can kind of see the person and through their aura know which type of fortune telling is best for them, whether it's from tea leaves or tarot cards, or I don't know, a crystal ball. Anyway, she comes from a very affluent family. Her dad's a doctor, her mom's a lawyer, and she grew up in a big house in New York City. And she's always kind of been a rebel, not like in a bad way, but in the way that she doesn't want to be seen coming for money. So she's always, going to cheaper stores. She's not, spending all her money on clothes or all of her money on getting her hair done. And her parents don't really understand that. She's also changed her name from Sylvia to Sunny because she feels like it suits her better. And her parents are kind of having trouble coming to terms with this in their daughter. She still loves them. They're still good parents, but they're just not quite what they expected their daughter to be. Anyway, she is in her 20s now, and she's decided that it's time for her to venture out. It's time for her to go live on her own and, see what life is like outside of the wealthy section of New York City. So she ends up using kind of like the last of her trust fund money to buy this haunted house, basically, in Divinity, New York. She feels like this is a perfect place to set up her fortune-telling business because that's the business that she wants to run. That's the business that she enjoys. She enjoys talking to people and telling their futures, which, is hopefully good news, but obviously not always. So she moves into this house, and the first visitor she has is a cat that is inside her house when she gets there. And this cat is no ordinary cat. It's a cat that has somehow been able to get in and out of this locked house. She does not know how. She somehow thinks that this is probably his house, and she has decided very graciously, not that she had a choice, that the cat is going to stay, and she named him Morty. That's kind of like a side character. It's not really relevant to some of the story, but Morty is a very cute character and a very intriguing one as well. Anyway, so when Sunny opens her business, her very first customer is the town librarian. And the town librarian hasn't had like the greatest day that day. She doesn't really say why, but she feels like someone may be out to get her. There's a lot going on. And Sunny does the reads, and sure enough, in her tea leaf reading, it shows that the librarian doesn't have long to live. After the librarian leaves, Sunny kind of has to decide what she wants to do. About an hour later, she decides to call the town sheriff, or detective, not sheriff. I don't know where I got sheriff from. Town detective, whose name is, I can't remember. She calls him Grumpy, but his actual name is obviously not that. She calls him Grumpy Pants. That's not actually his name. His name is... Alright, so his name is Detective Stone. Mitch is his first name. Anyway, she ends up calling him and reporting her tea leaf reading. He doesn't believe her, of course, and walks out, and then shortly after comes back because the town's librarian, Amanda, has been found dead. So now Sunny is the main suspect in this case. And what makes this book fun, not only the characters are really fun, you have the Sunshine Grumpy, and Sunny is kind of like the sunshine personality. Detective Stone is the grumpy personality, so you have that trope. And then, of course, the mayor of the town, who's up from re-election, really wants this murder solved so it doesn't affect his possibilities of being re-elected. He decides to partner Sunny with Detective Stone so that they can kind of solve the case together. Obviously, this stuff does not happen in real life. This is just like a fun book. If you're looking for a realistic murder mystery, this is not going to be it. But it was such a fun read. I love the characters. I thought both of them were well written, and the author really stuck with their personalities throughout. And I loved all the interactions that they had throughout the book, where like Detective Stone goes from thinking she's a suspect to thinking she couldn't do it, and then something happens and she's back to being a suspect in his eyes, and something else happens and now she's not, all the way through to the end of the book. And of course, there's that little underlying romantic spark going on as well. So yeah, this series I am definitely going to continue to read. It says it's a 10-book series at least, so I'm excited about that. And I think for the rest of the series, the two of them are partners, and I can't wait to kind of see how their relationship develops. If Sunny keeps getting on the nerves of Detective Stone like she did in this one, or if Detective Stone kind of loosens up a little bit, and you know, if he ever believes that she actually does have these fortune telling abilities that she claims to. So if you're looking for like a fun mystery that, you know, is not realistic, because these type of things don't typically happen in real life that have happened in this book, but if you're just looking for a fun mystery with two fun characters to read about and aren't looking for like any in-depth narrative, like dialogue, anything like that, just like a fun book to get through on a snowy winter's evening, this is definitely a book to try out to see if it's to your taste. So yes, so that is A Tempest in the Tea Leaves. I was so unsure when I started out on this book, especially with the initial cover I found. It looked like it was going to be like another Death in Darjeeling book, but it was not. It was totally different, and I think the cover on the Kindle portrays this book a lot more accurately than the cover that I held up when I chose this book. All right. I could continue to talk about this book for a very long time, but then this video is probably going to be, 2 hours long. So let's go on and do our next roll. That's going to be our seventh roll of the game. And we are so close to the end. This could be the last roll of the game. So everyone cross their fingers and hope for the best. So let's bring up the game board. So here we are back at our game board for hopefully what will be the last roll of our cozy reading game. We are right here right now, and you can see if we roll a 4 or more, that means our game is over and we have successfully completed our November reading game. So we are going to think about very high numbers when we roll our 8-sided die, because it is really time for this game to be completed. All right, here we go. We got a 3. This game is definitely out to get me this month. I don't understand at all. 1, 2, 3. All right. Well, this will definitely be our last book, though. So looking on the bright side, this will definitely be the last book of the game. But this time, we'll be choosing from the variety jar, which is right here. So this jar has prompts that have to do with like when a book was published, the name of the author, the color of the book. So it gives us a lot of leeway to pick which book we are going to read. So that is kind of like the redeeming feature of this roll. So let's go ahead and choose our last prompt of the game. All right, so here we go. So we will be reading a book that was published in 2023. All right, so we actually have a lot of options here. And the good news is not only do we have options, we also have books that are on my November TBR, which at this stage is very important because it is November 21st. And I really need to be reading those at this time. So the two from my TBR that I'm going to choose from that were published in 2023 are going to be A Study in Drowning. That'll be our option number 1 by Ava Reed. And our second option is My Roommate is a Vampire. So both of these are published in 2023. Both of these are in my cozy fantasy genre for this game. So we have A Study in Drowning, which is 378 pages long, and it's a fantasy where the main character has to kind of redesign a manor that used to be owned by her favorite author who recently died. And while there, she meets this person named Preston who is trying to expose her favorite author as a fraud. So it's kind of like a rivals book. And it sounds really good. And then we have My Roommate is a Vampire, which is 341 pages and follows Cassie, who ends up renting an apartment with her new roommate Frederick, only to find out that he may actually be a vampire. So those are two options, and I think the one I'm going to go with is My Roommate is a Vampire. I know I have it under Cozy Fantasy, but it also has obviously a romance theme to it as well. And we haven't really had that much cozy romance in this game, even though we've read 6 books. I think we've had like 1 romance. So I think that will be the perfect way to end this game for November. And yes, it is also the shorter of the two. So, take that as you will. So that will be our choice for our final book for this game. It'll be My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This game, I don't even know what to do. I don't know if I want to play this game ever again, if this is what it's going to do to me. We rolled a 3, literally a 3. If we had rolled 1 number higher, we would have been done with this game. But no, we got a 3, which means we have 1 more book to read. Just 1, because now, next time that we roll, we will be finished with the game. So this is the last book for this game. Thankfully, I was able to get one of my November TBR books onto it. So we will be reading My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. So I'm actually really excited for this book. I've been excited to read this book since it came out last year in 2023, but I never got around to it last year. So I was super excited to get it onto my TBR for November, and I'm super excited that I can read it in this game because it will not only finish this game off for me, it will also knock off a book for my TBR, and we have just over a week left in November for me to complete the rest of it. So I needed this. I needed this a lot. So this book follows Cassie, who has just been kicked out of her apartment, and she finds a Craigslist ad that requests a roommate, and the rent is going to be like $200, which is unheard of for where they live. So Cassie, a little nervous about it, ends up going, sees the apartment, which is fabulous, and ends up accepting this offer and becomes roommates with Fitzgerald. And then one thing kind of leads to another. There's a lot of weird quirks that Fitzgerald has, including sleeping during the daytime and not allowing her to go into this closet, and eventually things come to a head, and she comes to find out that her roommate is a vampire. So that is where the story begins, I suppose. So I am going to get to reading this book. It's hopefully a shorter book. I'm hoping to get finished with it either today or tomorrow. We'll find out when. And because this video needs to go up tomorrow or the next day. So I will get back to you again when I'm at the end of the book. I stopped doing the halfway through reviews just because otherwise, with 7 books on this game, the video would probably have been like 2 hours long, which is way too long for something like this. So I'll let you know how I feel at the end of the book, and we will wrap up this game, and we will complete our cozy November reading game. So I'll see you guys soon. We have done it. We have finally finished the last book for this game. What a long game this has been. But this morning, I finished My Roommate is a Vampire, and that was the 7th and final book for this cozy reading game. And I ended up really liking it as well. The last 2 books I read in this ended this game very nicely. I love the 2 characters in this book. Cassie is an artist who makes kind of these unique artistry using a combination of painting and found materials. And Frederick is a vampire who would fit better in the 19th century than he does in the 21st century. He wears like 3-piece suits. His manner of speech is very formal. He likes to write letters instead of text. So you can kind of see his situation and why he needed a helping hand to teach him how to blend in our current technological times. I really liked how the author wrote Frederick. I liked his personality. He was almost like this adorable vampire who was just kind of clueless of everything that was going on in his outside world, outside of the house. And I liked how she kind of changed his personality as well as his way of interacting with the world as the book went on, kind of showing his growth as he became more and more exposed to the outside world. The only thing I did not like about this book was the third scene, third scene conflict, because it was solved way too easily, and I thought that there could have been some more some more, like when go up a cliff and you're falling off the cliff. There's a word for that, and I'm blanking on it right now. I stayed up way too late reading this book. Tension. There we go. There could have been way more tension in that third act conflict than the author put into it. I know this was her debut novel, and like I said, while I enjoy the character, the personality, I felt that part of the plot could have been done a little bit better, and I'm hoping that she kind of improves on just that part in future books. I know this is the first book in a series, but when I looked up the second book, it actually follows one of Frederick's friends and not Cassie and Frederick, and there's definitely some cliffhangers there that I kind of want to see what happens to them in the future. So I'm hoping that she writes another book that follows up on where Cassie and Frederick are in life. So we'll see. Maybe that'll come out next year around Halloween. I can just cross my fingers and hope. But anyway, we have done it. We have completed the cozy reading game. Technically, we have one more roll, and I don't want to move the camera around, so I'm going to see if I can do that sitting right here. All right. Well, that could work. All right, we are right here on the last spot. The finish line is there. If I get an 8 on this last roll of the game, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut off the camera. We'll see. All right, oops, there goes a pumpkin, but we know where we are. Here we go, last roll. A 2. All right, well, at least the game is consistent. It wasn't this dice, so I had 2, 2. At least the game was consistent and did not give me a 8 for the last roll of the game. But we have made it to the finish line. All right, so we have completed our cozy reading game. It's hard to believe we got 7 books out of this short path, but we managed to. On review, I read 2,004 pages for this reading game. That was supposed to be a short, quick 3 to 4 book reading game, not 7. I did complete 2 books on my November TBR in this game, though, so that was great. We have 7 days left in the month for me to complete the rest of my TBR, and we'll see if I can manage it by the end of the month. I definitely enjoyed playing this game, and I enjoyed all the books I read. I definitely had some favorites in the mix, so let me just let you know which books I enjoyed the most. So the top 3 books on this list for me were Tempest in the Tea Leaves. I absolutely enjoyed that book because it was just so much fun and the plot kept moving, and yeah, I really enjoyed the characters. Role Playing was another one I really liked. I thought that was a fun romance, a kind of like a unique theme romance with the 2 characters meeting through a online battle game basically, and them also being a older pair than you typically read in the romance books. And then my third was My Roommate is a Vampire. Again, that was just a fun book. It didn't get all the way at the top just because of that third scene conflict that I thought could have been written a little bit better with a little bit more tension in it. But other than that, I definitely enjoyed the characters and I thought it was a cute, adorable book. And then comes the 2 T. Kingfisher books, A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking and Minor Mage. Those were both fun, unique fantasies written, for that middle grade level. So they were just fun, quick reads to have in this reading game, which I definitely needed in this particular game. Then after that was Love, Sugar, Magic, another fun middle grade book. And then ending with Death by Darjeeling, which I just never really connected with the characters. The mystery plot itself was okay, and that's kind of why it ended on the bottom of the pile of books I read. So there we have it, the conclusion of our cozy reading game for fall. I was thinking about bringing this game back in the springtime. We'll see how I feel at that point, and hopefully if I do bring it back, it's a little bit nicer than it was to me this month. Next month, we will be doing a holiday reading game, which I'm super excited about to get us into the mood for the holidays. I celebrate Christmas, so a lot of the books will probably be centered around that holiday. But I do have some books picked out that feature other holidays of December as well. We'll see. Hopefully that game is a lot nicer to me than this one because I don't think a lot of those books are going to end up on my December TBR, but you never know. We'll have to see. Other than that, after this video comes out, will be my December TBR video coming out next week, and that will be the last TBR of this year, which is crazy. I can't believe we are almost into December, and Thanksgiving is next week, the start of the holiday season. So I hope everyone enjoys the rest of November. Like I said before, we already had our first snow. We're still technically in fall, but we had our first snowfall yesterday, which is unbelievable as well. So Hope everyone's staying warm. I can't wait to start using my fireplace right here behind me. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Take care. Bye.